step. She goes, "There's a ghost in here." And then she gave him some sort of silly name, but it was just weird because nobody had said anything to her about the things that we've had happen. And just first thing she said, "There's a ghost up here."
Yeah, I would say that. I would say the spirit hangs out in that room you just spoke of.
Now, you mentioned it was a working farm. How old is the farmhouse?
Oh, it's old. Whenever we looked it up, the furthest thing back we could find is the farmer that owned it before the current family owns it that we rent from. They had bought it in like the 50s or something like that, and it's got to be older than that. So it's a very, very old farmhouse, like very old. It's one of those no insulation in the walls, gets freezing cold in the wintertime type old houses.
Well, that puts it probably way before the turn of centuries. What do you think, James?
Oh, definitely. And you know, it's really hard to find any records pretty much more than 100 years or older. And not only that, look at the history that could have happened on that land between different tribes of Indians fighting each other, soldiers and Indians, you know, that you not even recorded. Who knows what happened on the land, you know, that's still there affecting the land.
Well, you know, it would scare me, too. A lot of those old farmhouses, you know, like, I hate to say it, when people would, you know, pass on, they would have like a wake or, you know, where the body would be in state for a couple days, you know, in the parlor. And and also, you know, James, tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right. On a lot of those old farms and old properties and stuff like that, they could be bodies, you know, buried out there, you know, because, you know, instead of going to the cemetery, back then, they didn't have laws. Right. Yeah, they didn't have laws.
You're right, because even where I live here in Ohio, I live, you know, it's a small town, a lot of country. You could go right, you know, 5 miles, you're in like Bigfoot country from my house, and you can look, a lot of the old houses and farms out on them country roads, their whole family tree is right there buried in the yard with the headstones. It's just, especially the old farms.
Mm-hmm. Well, this particular house, to give credence to what you just said about the wakes and things, whenever you come in the front door, you're in this huge room, which we use as a dining room, but it's so big that we have our dining room table, and then against one wall, we actually have a couch. We're just using that part as a sitting room. I mean, it's huge. And then you go in the living room, and it looks like the living room used to be 2 rooms. It's about double the size of a regular living room. So I said to fiance when we moved in, that's the first thing I said to her, is I bet you they used to have wakes in here.
Does that have sliding wood doors?
No, it does not.
Because a lot of places that would use it for that kind of, they would have sliding wood doors to kind of partition it off sometimes. Of course, it may have. You know, another thing, in your travels, did you ever do any remodeling, you know, in any of your houses? Because that's been known to kick up a lot of activity, too. I wonder if you ever noticed any of that.
Well, this one here, it may have had the sliding doors at one point because there is a new closet in that front part of the living room. It's a double-door closet, but it opens into the same closet. And in the back of the closet, you can tell it was just put up pretty quick. It's not even a real wall. It looks like a new addition. So that may very well have been a sliding door at one point.
Interesting. Yeah.
Have you had anything else weird going on in that house besides, you know, was it like shuffling upstairs and anything like that? Any doors opening and closing, refrigerator opening and closing, anything, you know, smells, you know, weird noises or anything like that, things being moved. And, you know, and the reason why I say that, a lot of times on some of these old houses that some of the people I've talked to, things would be moved, like tools or, you know, dishes or something would be, you know, totally moved in a different area.
No, but sometimes whenever you're laying in bed at night, from our bed, you can kind of see through the master bath or the upstairs bathroom and a little bit into the hallway. And you know that feeling you get when somebody walks into a room, like even if you're not looking, you can feel when somebody walks into a room?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of get that as well. And our little boy, one night, he doesn't scare terribly easy. He's a pretty brave little guy. And he just started screaming one night, and we rushed into his room, and he said something grabbed my leg and pulled it across the bed. So while we're in there calming him down, you know, it was just a dream, our 12-year-old, she comes out of her bedroom and she goes, "What's going on?" Something just woke me up. And this was like 10 minutes after the screaming. Something, she said it wasn't screaming that woke her up. She wasn't sure what it was, but something else had woken her up. And that was really the only scary things that we've had happen in the house.
Now, how long you've been living there, Nick?
We've been there about 7 months now.
Do you have any suggestions, James, if something is going on, what not to do?
Well, I would definitely not confront it, and if at all possible, don't show it. Don't feed it any fear or any anxiety or any negative emotions, because it will just feed on that and get stronger. It will only be as strong as you actually let it. So if you don't feed it any of those things, and don't confront it or anything, and I definitely wouldn't do no EVPs in your own house. I always say don't poop in your own backyard, so to speak, when you're investigating stuff. Like, don't do your own house. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, you already know what's there. It sounds like it's just somebody that lived there, like probably an old farmer lived there for 40 years or something. He didn't cross over, and he's attached to the land, But I definitely wouldn't confront him or show any fear or anything like that. Do you have any animals at all? Any pets?
Yes, we have 2 dogs. We have a lab and a husky, and sometimes the lab, this just started recently, he'll just start barking for no reason whatsoever. We get down there and he stops, but he's just barking for no reason whatsoever.
I was curious about that, if you did. Yeah, I mean, animals are a good indicator if something's close by. Well, like you just said, if they start looking up into the ceiling or barking for no reason, you probably know something's going on. Also, if you start any remodeling, that usually kicks a lot of stuff up, too. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh, James, remember the guy who wrote the Ghost of the Gettysburg, was on? And,
yeah,
it was like his power tools and stuff like that would be constantly being moved around the whole house and hid. And
yeah, some of them he's never found.
Yeah. that just makes me wonder. I mean, I don't know. Right. I hate to say it. The house I'm in right now, the original owners of the house perished, and they rebuilt the house. Where the house I'm in was rebuilt in the same area. And I hate to say it, when they rebuilt the house, whoever did, they even used some of the same wood. But so far, I haven't had any problems yet. And I've been here almost 20 years, thank God.
I got another question for Nick. When you moved in that house, was there any mirrors in there that was pre-existing?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Because mirrors can hold a lot of stuff.
The only stuff that was in the house, and I think this is freakier than anything, was that hospital bed and that old desk. Yeah,
and I bet you... boy, I'll tell you what. If my advice, I'd get rid of that bed. It probably got a lot. It's holding a lot of energy of some sort anyway. I can assure you of that.
Especially if somebody passed away on it.
Right, and a lot of them rooms were used for if a family member had tuberculosis, or a lot of families were. If you had a hardcore male figure, they would punish their kids by putting them in that room for a day or so. I mean, it was just so it's going to hold a lot of negative type energy in it. Well,
not just that. If you had a child for some reason that was out of control, they automatically, a lot of people, besides going in mental institutions, and that was quite common. Can you figure out how many women that was going through menopause that actually ended up in a mental institution over it? But, and seriously.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Gary, I will send you some pictures whenever I get back home, because what I'm going to say, there are 2, it almost looks like shackle hooks in the ceiling of the attic. And whenever I get home, I will send you pictures of those, and I'll send you pictures of the hospital bed and things like that. But yes, there are 2, it looks like something that you'd put shackles on for somebody's hands in the attic.
Yep, I'm telling you, that's what I'm sensing. It was used for something not positive, negative, like locking somebody in there for some reason.
Well, my hair is standing up on my arms right now when you said that.
Believe me, I can see the room. I can see it. It's hitting my hair. If I had hair, it'd be sticking up. But yeah, boy, my hair, it's invisibly sticking up because I don't have any. But boy.
That's because you keep shaving it, James.
What's that?
I said that's because you keep shaving your head.
Well, you're not supposed to tell my secrets.
Use Nair hair remover.
Yeah, I might have to. Jeez.
Now, Nick, have you had any other paranormal weird experiences? We got a few minutes left.
I'll tell you the only thing that's ever happened that really made me pretty, in my adult life at least, pretty scared, is whenever I was out in Michigan, and the company that I was working for at the time, we did a drop and hook where we drop an empty trailer and pick up a loaded trailer at the same place almost every night. And it was just this big empty parking lot with just a couple of lights in the parking lot, the big pole lights.
Uh-huh.
And do you know what I'm talking about whenever I say the Hat Man? It's like a shadow person, but he's got on a big wide brim hat.
I've heard, yes.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I saw him every night for probably 2 weeks because I'd get there and I'd do my logbook. This was prior to ELDs coming in. And I'd get there and I'd do my logbook. And every time I'd look down at my logbook, I would see him standing. It's like he was leaning on one of those light poles. And I'd look up, and just as soon as I look up, he'd be gone. And eventually one night after 2 weeks of this, I said, I see you, and I need you to go away. And that was the last time I ever saw it. But that made me feel so freaked out seeing that more than anything else I've ever seen. And I don't know exactly what shadow people are, but I just, after that, I know that they're not anything good.
Well, I can say when I was a little child, I got every summer farmed out to Oakland, California to my grandmother and my uncle's house. I'd spend half the summer with my grandmother, the other half with my uncle and his family. My grandmother's house, I didn't want to go because it was an old apartment. It was built probably around the 1870s, in Oakland. It was really old. And, she made me go into, sleep in this one bedroom. It had glass doors, and it was really weird, old-fashioned pull-down bed. I remember the first night I was in there, and I know I wasn't dreaming. I saw, and I had a nightlight on in the walk-in closet, a very dim one. But I saw a figure come out and walk around the walls, the whole bedroom, and go back into the closet. And I tell you, that was the last night I spent there. I mean, it scared me so bad, especially a little kid. Even putting the blanket over my head, I was, scared.
I can imagine so.
Really. I do know one thing, those shadow figures, they're only as strong as you make them. So if you don't show them any fear or anything like that and don't confront them, if Nick did like the right thing, he didn't confront it, he just let it know, hey, look, he stood his ground. He set his boundaries and said, I see you, go away, instead of confronting them with anger or being scared, because that's how they get their energy to scare you back. So he didn't do that. That was good.
Can't they get stronger, too, James, too, if you show fear? They get more aggressive, or they can...
Yeah,
I don't know.
Absolutely.
You know how many adults out there are still scared at night to reach underneath their bed?
A lot of them.
Seriously.
There's a lot.
There is no worse feeling in the world, in my opinion, than laying in bed and feeling like something's watching you. I hate that, even though I know there's probably nothing there. I'm sure that's leftover childhood fear.
If you're feeling that, I can assure you, Nick, there's probably something watching you, unfortunately. But just don't be scared of it.
Thank you for the great sleep I'm going to get tonight.
Well, don't be scared. Hey, James, what say you?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going back to my grandmother and grandfather. They lived in a house for a year till their lease was up. Now, this was when I was a little kid, and my grandmother would be coming over to my parents' house crying because of weird noises, weird smells, things moving, thumping on the walls. They couldn't take it anymore. I mean, things disappearing. And like I was telling Nick, they moved out when the lease was up, and they re-rented it. And the next thing, it was in the newspaper that the next tenant that moved in had to go underneath the crawl space to do something for some reason, and found a body wrapped up in a blanket with a chain. And it made the news and all that stuff. The whole time, and this was under the front room, and the whole time all this stuff was going on with my grandmother and grandfather living in the house. So, you know, as a little kid, I would look at